April 9th, Wednesday night. I'm reconciling invoices, the monthly ritual where I pull up OpenAI, Anthropic, and Zapier side by side and pretend I'm not scared to look. And this time, the Zapier number doesn't make sense. I'm staring at a task count that's 42% over my plan limit. 42%, which means every task past the cap has been billed at 1.25 times the base rate. I didn't get a warning. I didn't get an email that said, hey, you're close. The zaps just kept running, and Zapier kept charging. So I start digging. Which zaps burn through the overage? It's not the critical ones, not the client onboarding flows, not the invoice sync. It's a batch enrichment zap I built for one client's CRM. Runs every 6 hours, hits an API, updates about 300 records. Totally non-critical. Could have paused for a week and nobody would have noticed. But it didn't pause, because I had no system telling it to pause. No alert at 60%, no throttle at 80, no kill switch at 100. Just an open tap running into a paid meter. That overage cost me about $230. Not catastrophic. But here's what kept me up. I have 12 clients. If 3 of them had spiked the same way in the same month, that's $700 of margin I didn't budget for. Gone. Because a non-critical zap didn't know it was non-critical. That Thursday morning, I built the system I'm showing you today. The problem is not that AI costs are unpredictable. OpenAI publishes per token prices. Anthropic publishes per token prices. Zapier tells you exactly what a task costs past your plan limit, 1.25 times base. The problem is that nobody builds the wiring between those numbers and an actual stop signal. So today you're getting that wiring. One usage ledger that tracks tokens, tasks, and make credits per client. Slack alerts at 60, 80, and 100% of budget. Auto throttle rules that slow non-critical flows before they spike. And a kill switch on every platform, Zapier, Make, N8N, that shuts down the stuff that doesn't matter before it eats the margin on the stuff that does. Okay, so here's what I was dealing with that Thursday morning. 12 clients. 3 cost surfaces per client. LLM tokens across OpenAI and Anthropic, Zapier tasks, and Make credits. And every one of those surfaces has a different unit, a different price, and a different way of telling you how much you've used. OpenAI gives you a usage dashboard with exports. Anthropic has their usage and cost API, which is actually great. You can pull spend programmatically. Zapier shows task counts in your account settings. Make shows credit consumption in the scenario logs. But none of them talk to each other. And none of them can tell you, Client X is at 78% of their monthly budget across all platforms. That's the gap. Not visibility per vendor, visibility per client across vendors. So the first thing I built was a cost ledger. Google Sheets. 1 row per usage event. 12 columns. Date, client name, source, model or plan, metric type, quantity, unit, and then the pricing fields. Input price per million tokens, output price per million tokens, task unit price for Zapier, credit unit price for Make. And then a calculated cost column that picks the right formula based on the metric type. This takes roughly 20 minutes to set up from scratch. If you grab the template from the resources page, it takes about 5. You just replace the bracketed fields with your client names and your current pricing. Now, the pricing tab matters more than people think. OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google all publish per million token rates. You can look them up right now. But here's the catch with Make. They move from operations to credits, and most non-AI modules still cost 1 credit per operation. Fine, but their built-in AI modules? Variable. The credit cost scales with tokens, processing time, even file size in some cases. So if you're running a Make scenario that calls an AI module, you cannot just count operations anymore. You have to track credits, and you have to know that a single AI step might burn 5 or 10 credits, where a normal HTTP module burns 1. I learned this the fun way. Had a client whose content generation scenario looked like it was running 50 operations a month. 50. Totally fine. Except those 50 operations included an AI summarizer that was consuming about 300 credits. The scenario log showed it. I just wasn't looking at the right number. So the ledger is layer 1. Layer 2 is alerts. And this is where it gets satisfying because the math is simple. You set a monthly budget per client per source in a budgets tab. The rollup tab pulls actual spend from the ledger, divides by budget, and flags when you cross 60, 80, or 100%. A column called alert level does the threshold check. Another column called last notified tracks which alert already fired so you don't get duplicate Slack messages. The Slack integration is one Zap or one Make scenario. Watches the rollup tab for new alerts, posts to your channel, and updates last notified. That's it. At 60%, you get an informational ping. At 80, a warning. At 100, an action alert. And the 100% alert is the one that triggers the kill switch. But I'll get to that. Now, someone's going to say, and I've gotten this DM, Jordan, OpenAI has a usage dashboard. Anthropic has budget alerts built in. Why am I building a spreadsheet? Fair question. And the answer is, use those tools. Absolutely use them. Set budget alerts in every vendor console you have access to. But here's what those dashboards cannot do. They cannot turn off a Zapier Zap. They cannot stop a Make scenario. They cannot deactivate an N8N workflow. They can tell you the house is on fire. They cannot turn off the stove. That's what the kill switch is for, and that's why the ledger exists, to be the single source that connects vendor spend to platform actions. All right, layer 3, throttling. This is the part that runs quietly in the background and prevents you from ever needing the kill switch in the first place. The idea is simple. Slow down non-critical flows so they don't spike your usage in bursts. On Zapier, the tool is delay after queue. You add it near the top of any Zap that handles bursty events. Webhooks, bulk table updates, anything that might fire 50 times in a minute. You give the queue a name, set a wait between runs. I usually start with 10 to 15 seconds. And now that Zap processes one run at a time instead of stampeding through your task limit. Zapier's own docs recommend this pattern specifically to avoid hitting their rate limits. And those limits are real. 450 requests per minute per Zap table combination, 150 per 5 seconds. If you're doing anything with Zapier tables, you will hit these without a queue. On N8N, if you're self-hosting, the lever is an environment variable called N8N underscore concurrency underscore production underscore limit. Set it to whatever your infrastructure and your external APIs can handle. I run mine at 5 for most client instances. If you're using queue mode with workers, you set worker concurrency separately. And then inside individual workflows, you add wait nodes to pace loops that call rate-limited APIs. The combination of concurrency caps plus in-workflow waits keeps you under external rate limits without manual babysitting. Make is the easiest here, honestly. Make has automatic retry with backoff built in. If a module hits a rate limit or a timeout, Make retries with stage delays and caps parallel retries at 3 per scenario. So you don't need to build a queue. You need to not fight the queue that already exists. Space your scenario schedules conservatively. If you're replaying a backlog, chunk it through a data store instead of dumping everything at once. Throttle first, scale later. I have that written on a sticky note on my monitor. It's not glamorous advice, but every time I've ignored it, I've regretted it within a week. Layer 4, the kill switch. This is the part that actually stops the bleeding when a client's usage hits 100% of budget. The principle is critical. You only kill non-critical automations. You never put a client's invoice sync, their onboarding flow, or their payment processing on the kill list. You decide in advance which flows are non-critical. Batch enrichments, report generators, content schedulers, analytics syncs, and you tag them. In the Budgets tab, each source client pair has a priority column, critical or non-critical, and a kill switch armed column, true or false. When the Rollup tab hits 100% and the priority is non-critical and the kill switch is armed, That's when the automation fires. On Zapier, you use Zapier Manager. It's a built-in app that can turn zaps on and off. Your kill switch zap watches the roll-up tab, loops through a list of non-critical zap IDs, and calls Zapier Manager to turn each one off. Then it posts to Slack with a re-enable link, a webhook URL that triggers a second zap to turn everything back on. One click. That's the re-enable. On Make, you hit the Scenarios API. Post to /API/v2/scenarios/your scenario ID/stop. That deactivates the scenario. To re-enable, same endpoint but with /start. You need a personal access token with Scenarios right scope. I run this from a separate Make scenario, the toggler scenario, so it never accidentally disables itself. Yes, I learned that one the hard way too. On N8N, the built-in N8N node has activate and deactivate workflow operations. There's even an official template, template 3229, that demonstrates scheduled activation and deactivation using the native API. Quick note if you're on N8N v2, the UI labels change to publish and unpublish, but the activation endpoints still work through the API and the built-in node. So your kill switch workflow deactivates the non-critical workflows by ID, posts confirmation to Slack, and provides a webhook-triggered re-enable path. Same pattern as Zapier and Make, just different verbs. Actually, I want to flag something about the N8N endpoint documentation. The built-in node and the official templates clearly support activate and deactivate operations, and community implementations confirm the REST endpoints work. But as of right now, N8N doesn't have a single static reference page that enumerates those endpoints the way Make's Scenarios API docs do. So if you're building this on N8N, follow the template and the built-in node operations rather than trying to reverse engineer endpoint paths from the docs. It works. The documentation just isn't as tidy as Make's. So that's the full system. Ledger feeds the rollup triggers alerts at 60, 80, 100. Throttle rules keep non-critical flows from spiking in the first place, and the kill switch catches anything that gets through the throttle and hits the cap. I want to be honest about one thing though. This system adds complexity. You now have a spreadsheet to maintain, alert automations to monitor, and kill switch zaps or scenarios that could theoretically misfire. If you accidentally put a critical flow on the non-critical list, you could disable something that matters. That's a real risk. Which is why the test plan matters, and I mean actually running it. Add a fake client to your budgets tab with tiny budgets. Push test rows into the ledger that cross each threshold. Watch the Slack alerts fire. Watch the kill switch toggle your test zaps off. Click the re-enable link. Confirm everything comes back. Do this before you arm it on a real client. Takes about 30 minutes. Saves you from the kind of mistake that's much harder to explain than a $200 overage. And recalibrate monthly. Token prices change. Gemini started billing for search grounding features back in January. Makes credit costs shift when they update AI modules. Your clients' usage patterns drift as they adopt the tools you built for them. The budget numbers in that spreadsheet are not set and forget. They're a monthly 5-minute review. That $230 overage from April? It would not have happened with this system. The 60% alert would have pinged me mid-month. The throttle would have slowed the enrichment zap down before it burned through the remaining tasks. And if it somehow still hit the cap, the kill switch would have turned it off. And I would have gotten a Slack message with a one-click re-enable link instead of a surprise on my invoice. That's the difference between monitoring costs and controlling them. Monitoring tells you what happened. Control stops what's about to happen. Here's your one move this week. Open a Google Sheet or grab the Guardrail's template pack on the resources page, which has the ledger, the alert formulas, and the kill switch recipes for all 3 platforms ready to go. Pick your highest spend client, set their budget, wire the 60% alert to Slack. Just that. You can add the throttle and the kill switch next week, but the alert alone will change how you think about your margins. I'm Jordan, this is Headcount Zero. Go build the guardrails.